Hi there, this is the inaugural video of an analytical series on the weapons and items from Heretic. I wanted to do this series because Heretic's 25th anniversary is this month as of this video's recording. I wanted to celebrate it since it was and still is one of my most favorite video games, and I'll celebrate it by picking it apart, I suppose. Today I wanted to take a look at the staff and the gauntlets of the Necromancer, the two melee weapons in Heretic. People tend not to like the staff, mostly because the rest of the arsenal appears to be so much better. But is it secretly a good weapon? Well, no, but it does have its uses from time to time. What about the gauntlets? Are they better? Well, yeah, but not always. Either way, I wanted to take a look at both of these weapons and their uses. Let's begin. This is the Durhnwood Staff. It was made from the heart of a Durhnwood tree, one of the hardest building materials in all of Dwars. How hard is it though? Well, depending on the RNG, which functions not too dissimilar from Doom, any poke from your staff will do up to 5 to 20 damage on any enemy. Your staff is fast enough to do 150 pokes per minute, or 2.5 pokes a second. With all of those numbers in mind, you will be doing approximately 10 to 40 damage per second, provided you are consistently hitting a target with all of your staff pokes. However, you can use the Tome of Power with it, whose properties I will discuss in each video to help you get to learn how to use it effectively. The Tome of Power will naturally power up your staff. This means that the staff will do much more damage, with any powered up poke doing 18 to 81 damage. This means you can potentially do anywhere between 36 to 162 damage per second. So the staff is secretly good when you use the Tome of Power, right? Wrong. By the time you get your first Tome of Power on any map, you will have already found a better weapon to use it on. The tomed up staff should be reserved only when you have no other options. Odds are you will have found the Gauntlets of the Necromancer before you found a Tome of Power. Unpowered, the Gauntlets will emit shocks that do 2 to 16 damage every 4 ticks, which means you will be able to do approximately 525 shocks per minute. That means you can do 1050 damage to 8400 damage every minute. That's enough to theoretically kill almost every enemy in the game. Powered up, the Gauntlet's energy turns red and allows you to leech health from enemies. The amount of health you can leech depends on the amount of damage your Gauntlets do, cut in half and rounded down. That seems to be enough to regain between 8 and 70 health per second. Pretty good. However, the Tome of Power lasts only 40 seconds. You'll need multiple tomes if you want to leech health any longer. The same applies to doing the increased damage with the staff. Speaking of the staff, it does have a very niche role to fill. The gauntlets function not too dissimilar from the chainsaw in Doom, in which they will lock onto your enemies whenever you do damage to them. The staff, however, will allow you to be more mobile when dealing melee damage to enemies. It also has a subtle knockback effect, but that effect is very amplified when using a Tome of Power. Proper usage of the staff will allow you to save ammo for other encounters, which will definitely be useful on some of the levels that are a bit scarce in it. Now then, I want to show you how many hits it will take to kill each enemy with the staff. The basic gargoyle has 40 health, so it can take as little as 2 hits, or as high as 8 hits to kill. That means you can probably kill a single gargoyle in a few seconds, and avoid taking too much damage from them due to them being melee enemies as well. The subtle knockback might move them away enough for them not to do any damage to you, provided you can time your staff movements right. Naturally, the powered up staff can potentially kill the gargoyle in 1 to 3 hits, which will take even less time on your part. Due to their pain chance being an incredibly high 79.30%, it'll probably be easier for you just to use the gauntlets on them when you get the chance. The fire gargoyle is an enemy that has double the health from a regular gargoyle. You can tell them apart by when they throw projectiles at you. They stand at 80 health, ergo, it can potentially take double the amount of hits to kill. Assuming you are continuously hitting the fire gargoyle, it can take 1.5 seconds to nearly 6.5 seconds for the fire gargoyle to go down. Absurd. The powered up staff will take them down in 1 to 5 hits, so it will thankfully take less time if you're using that. Fire gargoyles also have the same pain chance as regular gargoyles, so it's also advisable to use the gauntlets on them if you wish to melee them. This next enemy type, the golems, are much easier to kill with the staff due to their low mobility and the fact they aren't flying around everywhere. They can still do potentially high damage, especially if you're cornered by them, so keeping as far away from them as you can while still poking them is best advised if you're using the staff. The golems have the same amount of health as the fire gargoyles, so it will potentially take the same amount of time to kill them. However, due to their larger size, it will most likely be easier to kill a golem with a staff than a gargoyle. With a high pain chance, however, it's probably more preferable to use the gauntlets on them. There's a problem with golems too. Golems also have a projectile throwing variant known as the Nitro Golem. Nitro Golems will shoot projectiles that home in slightly onto you. With 100 health, the Nitro Golems will take anywhere from 5 to 20 shots with an unpowered staff, and 2 to 6 with a powered one. It should be mentioned that golems, Nitro Golems, and undead warriors, who will be covered a little bit later, can sometimes come in the form of ghost enemies. These enemies will only take damage from magical sources, and since your staff is a physical weapon, it will do no damage to them. Yes, even when powered up. Keep that in mind anytime you see a translucent enemy. Once again, the gauntlets are more useful in these situations, since ghost golems and nitro golems all have the same pain chance, not to mention that the gauntlets are considered a magical weapon, so that means you'll actually be able to do damage to these enemies. Anyways, the next enemy you will encounter is the Undead Warrior. These revenant-looking dorks are very sturdy, with 200 health each. That means it can potentially take up to double the amounts to kill than a Nitro Golem, ranging from 10 to 40 hits with the unpowered staff, and 3 to 12 hits with a powered staff. Their enemy behavior is not too dissimilar from the Imps in Doom, and they do quite a bit of damage up close and far away, so staffing them is not advised. Even if you're using the Shadow Spear to negate their ranged attacks, they can still do melee damage to you when you get up close to them. They have a decent pain chance, around 39.84%, so the gauntlets aren't that bad against them. Though I would recommend still using ranged weapons against them. The next enemy to use melee on is the Disciple of the Sparrow, or the Wizards if you want to be simple about it. They have lower health than the Undead Warrior, but do much more damage, fly around a lot, and they can flicker between a ghostly and non-ghostly state while they're attacking with their triple missile barrage. This is another enemy you don't want to use the staff on, but with 180 health, hypothetically you can kill them in 9 to 36 hits with the unpowered staff, and 3 to 10 with the powered staff. The flickering is going to make that a bit hard though. They have a lower pain chance than usual too, and each missile from their triple missile barrage does 3 to 24 damage. If you're up close to them, you're likely to be hit by all 3 missiles, so melee in general is not a good idea against these guys. These next enemies are the ones you will be encountering in later episodes, who intend on making your life miserable. The Saberclaw is similar to the Golem in that it is an enemy who will attempt to corner you and try to do a lot of melee damage to you. The Saberclaws are actually a really good enemy to use a staff on if you want to save ammo. Although they have 150 health and can take anywhere between 8 to 30 unpowered shots to kill, or 2 to 9 if you're using an tome, Saberclaws are also affected by the staff knockback, which will allow you to move a bit more freely around them. Saberclaws also have a very low pain chance, only 10%, which means they'll attack through your gauntlet shocks. These enemies present one of the few, if not only circumstances where the staff is a better melee weapon to use instead of the gauntlets. With the Were-Dragons, however, it's business as usual. They behave similar to the Undead Warriors, but can deal even more damage if you aren't careful around them. 220 health means that it can take from 11 to 44 unpowered pokes, and 3 to 13 power pokes to kill them. You're better off with the gauntlets since their pain chance is higher, about the same as an Undead Warrior. The Ophidians are the real deal, with 280 health and firing a deadly trio of projectiles, followed by an even worse big projectile afterwards. They are an evil enemy. Not only that, but they have a low 16.02% pain chance. It's not worth it to use the staff against them. Even the gauntlets are particularly useful against them. If you want to know though, it takes between 14 to 56 unpowered staff hits, or 4 to 16 powered staff hits to kill them. Honestly, just use the Phoenix Rod and be done with them really. I don't like these jerks. Okay, these last few enemies are boss enemies, so we're upping the ante here. The Iron Liches are the bosses of episode 1, and with 700 health, they will take up to 35 to 140 unpowered staff hits, or 7 to 39 powered staff hits to kill. That is up to 56 seconds of endless staffing. Iron Liches do a despicable melee attack that can take up to almost half your health every time they attack. With a very low pain chance, as low as the Saberclaws, Not even using the gauntlets is worth it. Even tomed up with the life regeneration, the Iron Lich's melee damage output is very intimidating. I mean, the tomed gauntlets still work, but you'll have to depend on RNG to heal you highly and for them to damage you lowly. Not something I'd put my faith into. The Molotovs are the bosses of episode 2, and the staff does laughable damage against their 3000 health pool. You will need to hit the Molotov between 150 and 600 times to kill them with an unpowered staff. That is at least a full minute of endless poking. The tomed up staff holds up a bit better, but not by much. You'll need 38 to 166 hits for that. What about the gauntlets though? The Molotovs have a very low pain chance, but their melee attack is much lower than any of their ranged attacks. It's even lower than the Iron Lich's melee attack. The powered up gauntlets will allow you to survive any of the Molotov's melee attacks, and the lock-on properties of the powered up gauntlets will make sure that the Molotov will still be attempting to melee you. While you have to use a Tome of Power in a near perfect time, killing the Molotov with the gauntlets is a very viable strategy. The final boss, the Sparrow, however, should not be killed with either of these weapons. He has 2 phases, one on his serpent and one off it. The Serpent phase has 2000 hit points and a 19.53% pain chance, so while you think the gauntlets may potentially be viable, perhaps with a Tome of Power, they aren't. The Serpent's fireball can do anywhere between 10 to 80 damage, and its melee attack can do anywhere between 8 to 64. Usually these numbers lean more towards the latter, so I wouldn't even think about getting close to it unless you have a ring of invincibility. The first phase of the Sparrow will theoretically take 100 to 400 unpowered staff pokes to take down, or 25 to 111 powered staff pokes. The second phase is the Sparrow himself. The Sparrow has a low pain chance, the same as the Saberclaw, and does 20 to 160 damage with his melee attack alone. Fighting him up close is not recommended either, but if you're a mad lad who really wants to do that, get ready to do up to 175 to 700 unpowered staff pokes, or 44 to 195 powered staff pokes. Using the gauntlets is definitely out of the question unless you're using a ring of invincibility. The effects of the ring last for only 30 seconds, which means you can only theoretically do around 525 to 4200 damage to the Sparrow before the effect wears off. I say theoretically because the Sparrow will teleport around the final arena, especially the more he's damaged. This is very noticeable on the highest difficulty, where he will teleport around very often and make it quite a hassle for you to kill him with any weapon. So, what did we learn here? Well, in most situations, the staff is pretty much useless. Unless you have only a few enemies to fight, and no gauntlets available, you won't be using it too much, if at all. You may have a good opportunity to use it on Saberclaws, but all in all, it should only be used as a last resort. The gauntlets will serve you better throughout most of your playthroughs, but just try not to use them against bosses, except the Molotov if you have a Tome of Power. However, you do want to keep that Durhnwood Staff around, not only because it has a niche against Saberclaws, but it will also become your best weapon in Heretic 2, if you ever decide to play that, and I recommend you should because it's honestly pretty good. Anyways, that's all I have for you guys for now. I'll try to cover the rest of Heretic's arsenal later on, but if you liked the video, thumb it up. If you want, you can support me with a coffee in the description. Never necessary, but always appreciated. Thanks for watching, and until next time, toodaloo.